Avocado nearly disappeared from the face of the earth and survived only thanks to humans. Once, giant Pleistocene animals, mammoths, giant sloths, and woolly rhinoceroses ate avocado fruits whole and helped spread the seeds. But these giants went extinct, and the plant could have vanished with them. However, humans stepped in. Our ancestors began cultivating avocados and preserving their culture for thousands of years. Today, we see it as a trendy ingredient for smoothies and toast, but in reality, it serves as a living reminder that many species survived only because humans became their partners. Sound can not only be heard, but also seen. This is demonstrated using so-called Chladni figures. A metal plate is sprinkled with sand and then vibrated using a bow or speaker. The grains of sand arrange themselves into intricate patterns: stars, circles, lines. Each frequency creates its own drawing. It's as if sound paints a picture right before your eyes. Interestingly, this experiment can even be replicated at home with simple materials. So, music is not just something you hear, but also something you can see if you know the clever trick. In Sweden, donors receive a message on their phone when their blood is used to save someone's life. Imagine you donate blood, and a couple of days later you get an SMS saying, "Thank you, today your blood helped a patient." It's not only a nice gesture, but also gives a sense that your action truly matters. People start donating blood more often because they see the results right on their phones. This simple step turns an ordinary procedure into a heartwarming story of human solidarity, and perhaps it's the best like in the world. The Sahara is not just a sea of sand, but also a place where it can sing. Some dunes emit a low hum, or even melodic sounds when the sand slips down their slopes. It's like an organ built right into the desert. The reason lies in the unique shape and size of the grains. They rub against each other and create vibrations. Imagine walking on a dune, and suddenly the entire mound starts to resonate, as if alive. Travelers describe this sound as enchanting and mystical. It's no wonder that local tribes have legends about spirits singing in the sands. If you decide to walk the Great Wall of China from start to finish, prepare for a marathon lasting almost a year and a half. The total length of the wall is over 20,000 kilometers. Even if you walk 30 kilometers a day without stopping, it would still take about 18 months. Imagine, every day brings new views, mountains, steps, villages, all accompanied by ancient stone battlements. It's like walking along the longest historical ribbon, where each tower holds its own story. Few can undertake such a journey, but the thought that it's possible is inspiring. Strangely, female tarantulas live much longer than males, up to 40 years. While males have a short lifespan after reaching maturity, females can survive for several decades. Moreover, they can go without food for up to 2 years if they have access to water. This resilience makes them some of the most unusual spiders. For many, tarantulas symbolize fear, but in reality, they are surprisingly patient and enduring creatures. Their lives are slow, almost stretched out in time. And if spiders know how to wait, female tarantulas are true champions of this art. In the town of Coober Pedy in southern Australia, people hide from the heat underground. There, they have not only homes, shops, and churches, but even a post office. Imagine walking into a rock and finding a regular post office inside, complete with a window, stamps, and mailboxes. Everything operates just like on the surface, except the walls are made of sandstone and the temperature is pleasantly cool year-round. Tourists are thrilled. It's rare to send a postcard from an actual underground office. For the locals, however, it's just a part of life, a way to survive in a climate where the ground literally melts from the heat in summer. When we see an iceberg, It appears to be a massive chunk of ice proudly floating in the ocean. But the most treacherous part is that 90% of its mass is hidden beneath the surface. This means we only see a small tip, while the bulk remains concealed in the depths. This is why icebergs are so dangerous for ships. The underwater portion can be many times larger than what is visible. It's no wonder the Titanic collided with such a massive block, completely unaware of its scale. An iceberg is like an iceberg of problems. What's on the surface is just a small part. The water keeps its secrets deep, and they can be fatal for those who underestimate the danger. Sharks have no bones. Their skeletons are entirely made of cartilage. This makes their bodies light and flexible, like a spring. Sharks can turn sharply and dart towards their prey with lightning speed, like a perfectly oiled machine. This also allows them to grow throughout their lives. Some species can reach lengths of up to 12 meters. Imagine a fish the size of a bus, yet so agile that it can easily maneuver around any obstacles. The secret to its success lies in this paradox. No bones means no weight, only speed and freedom of movement. The blue whale is not only the largest, but also the loudest inhabitant of the earth. Its call reaches up to 188 decibels, louder than a departing airplane. These sounds can be heard up to 800 kilometers away underwater. The whale acts like a marine radio transmitter, communicating with other giants over vast distances. For us, it would be a deafening roar, but for them, it's a gentle song. Imagine, deep in the ocean where it's dark and empty, a powerful bass suddenly resonates, heard by whales scattered across the sea. It's a true symphony of nature. Many have noticed the small colored squares at the bottom of toothpaste tubes. Rumors claimed that they indicate the composition. Green means natural, red means chemical. But in reality, these are just marks for machines at the factory. They help accurately position the tube during packaging and labeling. The color of the square is not related to the ingredients, it's simply a technical marker. It turns out we've been attributing significance to ordinary paint stripes for decades. It's amusing how easily myths are born. A small square can transform into a secret code, when in fact, it's only meant for the assembly line. The word robot first appeared in a play by Czech writer Karel Čapek in 1920. In his play R.U.R., robots were artificial workers created for hard labor. Interestingly, the author derived the word from the Czech robota, meaning forced labor. Ironically, 100 years later, this word has become a symbol of future technologies. Today, robots clean homes, assemble cars, and even compose music. It turns out that it all started with the imagination of a writer who coined a word that changed the world. In China, there is an unusual village called Beima, where many residents live to be 100 years old or more. Scientists attribute this to a combination of clean air, mineral water, and a local diet rich in herbs and vegetables, with almost no bad habits. However, the locals have a different perspective. The secret lies in harmony with nature and a positive mindset. People here continue to work physically into old age, take walks, tend to their gardens, and their lives are filled with movement. Tourists come to see these lively seniors, hoping to adopt their habits. This place has become a symbol of the idea that longevity is not just about genetics, but also about a lifestyle that values simplicity and tranquility. It sounds incredible, but one mistake on the stock exchange cost $100 million. In Japan, a trader accidentally entered the wrong number. Instead of selling 6 shares at 610,000 yen, he sold 610,000 shares at 6 yen. The computer system did not allow the transaction to be canceled, and the company lost a colossal amount. This incident has been dubbed the fat finger error, when a single clumsy keystroke leads to catastrophic consequences. Imagine a simple typo, which we often attribute to inattention, turned into a sum equivalent to the budget of an entire city in the financial world. An ant is like a small truck with a two-chamber system. One stomach is for itself, to digest food and gain energy, while the other is for the colony. It stores food there to share with other ants through a special process called trophallaxis. This means ants literally feed each other mouth to mouth, functioning together as a single organism. If one finds a sweet treat, it not only carries it home, but also shares it, so others know the way to the treasure. It's like if we could eat a pastry and immediately pass a piece to a friend straight from our stomach, along with the address of the nearest bakery. The story of Arthur Tudor and Catherine of Aragon illustrates that even a common language doesn't always prevent misunderstandings. When Arthur Tudor, the brother of the future Henry VIII, first met his fiancée Catherine of Aragon, it turned out they couldn't communicate verbally. The issue was that their correspondence had been conducted in Latin, but their pronunciations were so different that they simply couldn't understand each other. It's amusing that a language considered universal among the European nobility ultimately let the young couple down. Imagine beautiful, formal letters, but in reality there were just gestures and bewildered looks. In the Finnish city of Tampere, charming robots have been created for cleaning parks. They are designed like little hedgehogs, with wheels instead of paws and sensors instead of noses. These devices find and collect trash, leaving clean pathways behind. It looks as if amusing mechanical creatures are scurrying across the lawn. People enjoy watching them, turning cleanup into a show. The hedgehog robots not only maintain order, but also remind everyone that ecology can be friendly and even fun. The Finns have once again demonstrated that technology can not only assist, but also make life more pleasant and warm. Giant whales are not just marine giants, but also true sanitizers of the climate. When a whale dies, its massive body sinks to the ocean floor, taking with it tons of carbon. This is roughly equivalent to the emissions produced by 100 cars over their lifetime. So whales help clean the atmosphere simply by living their lives. Scientists refer to them as carbon graveyards, but it doesn't sound sad at all. Each whale makes the world a cleaner place. It's amusing that the largest creature on the planet, weighing hundreds of tons, works in harmony with nature to ensure we breathe fresh air. You won't believe it, but there is a whale known as the loneliest in the world. Scientists discovered a whale nicknamed the 52 Hertz whale. It sings at a frequency different from all other whales, and no one responds to it. Its call goes unheard or misunderstood. This whale seems to sing an eternal song in solitude. Its story has become a metaphor for human isolation and loneliness. Millions of people around the planet empathize with it, seeing their own feelings reflected in its plight. Sometimes, even an animal becomes a symbol of what it means to be misunderstood in a vast world. In English, there is a record-breaking word, set. It has over 400 meanings. It all depends on the context. You can set the table, set the alarm, or set a record. The same short word can represent an action, a state, or an object. Imagine if we had a word that could mean book, to go, and bright. English is incredibly flexible in this regard, and such words make it rich and vibrant. For language learners, set is a real puzzle that requires a dictionary to navigate. The Hercules beetle truly lives up to its name. It can lift a weight that exceeds its own by 850 times. Imagine a person being able to lift a multi-ton truck. That's the ratio this tiny hero demonstrates. It inhabits tropical forests and primarily uses its strength to fight rivals and attract females. Males sport long horns with which they battle for the attention of the ladies. Despite its small size, this beetle is a true champion of strength in the insect world, a symbol that greatness is not determined by size. Nature once again proves that strength can come in the most unexpected forms. Today, speeding is a common offense, but the first case in history is quite amusing. In 1896 in England, a man named Walter Arnold was fined for driving at just 13 kilometers per hour. Back then, that was 4 times the allowed speed. The police caught up with him on a bicycle. The story became a sensation as cars were just starting to gain popularity. Today, 13 kilometers per hour seems laughable, but this incident marked the beginning of a long history of traffic regulations. It's funny that it all started with such a modest violation. Once, Xerox was not a generic term, but a proud brand name. Today we say, make a photocopy, even when using a completely different machine. This is an example of so-called brand genericide, when a name becomes so popular that it turns into a generic term. The same has happened with escalator, Scotch tape, and even Frisbee. For the company, this is not a cause for celebration but a serious loss. They lose legal protection, and the brand no longer belongs to its creators. The paradox is that excessive fame can turn into a disaster. You created a legend, and now it roams the world without you. A coincidence made Nicolas Cage a high school biology teacher in Serbia. In the 1990s, a school textbook was published in Serbia, and a still from the movie Raising Arizona, featuring Cage holding a baby, mistakenly ended up on the cover. For several years, students would open the textbook and immediately see the Hollywood star, as if he were a serious illustrator of school science. It's an absurd detail, but it only adds to the humor. The actor inadvertently became a resource for Serbian schoolchildren. Who knows, maybe that cover inspired someone to take an interest in biology for the first time. In the dense jungles of Honduras, archaeologists used lasers to discover a lost ancient city that had been hidden by nature for centuries. Laser scanning allowed them to see through the tree canopies and uncover the ruins of buildings, plazas, and pyramids. Local legends referred to this place as the White City, or the City of the Gods, attributing mystical powers to it. Researchers found numerous artifacts that confirmed the existence of a rich culture in the area. It turned out that deep within the forest lay an entire civilization forgotten by humanity. This discovery revealed that the jungles could be not just a home for wildlife, but also a vast repository of human history. Ordinary clay unexpectedly gave the world the image of a piggy bank. In fact, the term piggy bank has nothing to do with animals. In Old English, there was a word pig, which referred to red clay. This clay was used to make pots and jars for storing coins. Over time, the banks themselves became associated with this word. However, people later began to interpret pig as pig. Thus, the idea of making banks in the shape of piglets was born. This resulted in a remarkable example of how a linguistic mix-up created an iconic symbol of children's savings. Want to hear one of the strangest reasons for toxicity? Bright poison dart frogs are deadly. Their skin secretes a toxin that can kill a human. But here's the surprising part: they aren't toxic on their own. In captivity, where they are fed a regular diet, their skin becomes safe. It turns out the secret lies in their diet. In the wild, they eat specific ants and insects that contain toxic substances. So the poison is a result of their nutrition. Nature seems to show that even a small frog can become a weapon if it has the right ingredients on its menu. In Milan, skyscrapers have been built that resemble giant flower beds. Thousands of trees and shrubs have been planted on balconies and facades. This is the Vertical Forest Project, buildings that not only provide housing, but also purify the air, create shade, and reduce noise. In a city filled with cars and concrete, They have become green oases. The residents of these homes literally live among the treetops, not in a country house, but in a high-rise. Beautiful and beneficial at the same time. Architects have demonstrated that nature and the metropolis can be allies, not enemies, if trees are given space even on the 30th floor. Some crabs turn sea anemones into living weapons. Tiny crabs of the genus Libinia hold sea anemones in their claws and wave them around like living clubs. The anemones sting enemies with their venomous tentacles, protecting the crab, while receiving food and a chance to reproduce in return. If a crab loses its anemone, it can tear another one in half, and that one will regenerate into 2 new individuals. Nature's way of providing a backup plan. This is one of the most unusual examples of symbiosis. A small crab with living weapon gloves that can fend off even larger foes. Want to know the secret of sleep? It turns out that the amount of sleep needed varies by age. Babies require about 10 to 11 hours, teenagers need 9 to 10, adults get by with 7 to 8, and older adults may manage with just 6. Our bodies seem to adjust their internal clocks throughout life. Imagine, a child is fussy without sleep. A teenager sleeps in until noon. An adult enjoys rare weekends with long sleep. And an elderly person rises cheerfully at dawn. Sleep is universal fuel for the brain, but each age group has its own refueling norm. Even the great Benjamin Franklin used electricity for fun pranks. One of the founding fathers of the United States was not only a politician and scientist, but also a big fan of practical jokes. Franklin conducted experiments with electricity and once electrified the crown in a portrait of King George II of England. When guests tried to touch it, they were shocked. Franklin laughed and called this trick the electric shock of treason. Sometimes he would ask people to hold hands so the shock would pass along, creating a whole chain of laughing conspirators. For him, even science was an excuse for fun. The Leaning Tower of Pisa has been considered leaning for centuries, but thanks to the foundation reinforcement, it still stands today. In the 1990s, engineers carried out complex work. They excavated soil from one side and added supports to prevent the tilt from increasing. As a result, the tower was stabilized, and it has even straightened a bit. Imagine, a symbol of Italy could have collapsed, but the efforts of scientists turned it into a stable monument. Tourists still take pictures supporting it with their hands, but now we can be sure it will stand for at least another 200 years. Have you ever wondered why a person can't walk straight with their eyes closed? Scientists have conducted experiments where people were asked to walk in a straight line without visual cues. Almost everyone ended up moving in a curved trajectory, often in a spiral. The reason lies in our proprioception, which is the sense of our body's position in space. Without visual guidance, the brain gradually loses its way. Interestingly, a person can navigate by stars or even by smell, but as soon as we take away the familiar visual control, we turn into drunken sailors, unable to walk straight even for 100 meters. At first glance, almonds and peaches seem different. One is a nut, the other a juicy fruit. However, botanists claim they are close relatives and belong to the same rose family. Their pits have a similar structure, and the trees look alike when they bloom. The only difference is that peaches have edible flesh, while almonds are valued for their seeds. It's amusing that when we snack on a handful of almonds or enjoy a sweet peach, we are dealing with cousins. Nature is full of such surprises. Beneath the mask of differences lie familial connections that make the plant world even more fascinating and unexpected. Off the coast of Mauritius, there is a breathtaking sight. It looks as if a giant waterfall is crashing into the ocean right by the shore. In reality, this is an optical illusion. Ocean currents carry sand and sediment in such a way that it creates the impression of a swift flow downward into the abyss. From above, the view is fantastic. The water seems to plunge through the edge of the ocean. Tourists specifically fly here to witness this natural wonder with their own eyes. In reality, there is no chasm, but the beauty of the illusion is so striking that it is considered one of the most mesmerizing landscapes on the planet. For a long time, scientists were unaware that the strange transparent larva was a future eel. They believed for a long time that the leptocephalus was a separate species of fish. Its transparent, almost glass-like body with a long shape does not resemble any adult ocean dweller. But then it turned out that this is just a stage in the development of the eel. Such an unexpected masquerade of nature. The tiny larva lives its own life and then gradually transforms into the eel we know. Discoveries like this always surprise in science. It turns out that some of the new species are merely disguised teenagers of old acquaintances. Imagine that the North Star is not just a solitary light, but a whole family. We tend to think of the North Star as a lone beacon for travelers in the night. However, it is not a singleton, but rather an entire ensemble. There lies a trio, the bright Polaris A, its tiny companion Polaris AB, and the neighbor Polaris B. To us on Earth, they merge into a single point, but through astronomers' telescopes, this celestial trio becomes visible. Picture a lantern where the light comes not from one bulb, but from an entire string of lights. It's symbolic. Even the guiding star, which has served as a landmark for centuries, does not stand alone, but is part of a team. Butterflies have taste receptors located right on their legs. When they land on a flower, they taste it with their feet. This helps them determine whether the plant is suitable for feeding or laying eggs. For us, taste involves our tongue and lips, while for butterflies, it's a light touch of their legs. So every landing is like a tasting session for them. It's amusing to think that if humans had the same ability, we would taste soup just by touching our fingers to the bowl. But for butterflies, it works perfectly. Did you know that the Amish fundamentally do not wear mustaches? This religious group is known for its conservative lifestyle, no electricity, no cars, and traditional clothing. Amish men grow beards but never leave mustaches. The reason is that in the 19th century, mustaches were associated with the military, and the Amish have always been committed pacifists. For them, mustaches symbolize war and violence, which is why they reject them. It turns out that even a small detail of appearance can become a powerful symbol of beliefs and a reflection of one's worldview. A group of owls is called a parliament. This sounds very symbolic, as the owl has been regarded as a wise bird since ancient times. In Greek mythology, it accompanied the goddess Athena, and in the Middle Ages, it became a symbol of knowledge and magic. Perhaps that's why people decided that a gathering of owls resembles a meeting of sages discussing important matters. Imagine a forest at night. Dozens of owls perched on branches, conversing as if they were discussing an agenda. Of course, they have no politics, but the term has taken root in the language. This is a wonderful example of how human imagination gives animals vivid and memorable names. The phrase, "the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog," is known for containing every letter of the English alphabet. Such sentences are called pangrams. They are used to test fonts, practice typing, or evaluate keyboards. However, this is not a concept from the computer age. Calligraphers in ancient times also created pangrams to refine their handwriting. Imagine having to come up with a phrase that includes all the letters while still sounding meaningful. It's like a verbal puzzle that combines language and play. About 10% of people on the planet are left-handed. The world is primarily designed for right-handed individuals, from scissors and door handles to school desks. However, Left-handed people often stand out with a unique style of thinking. There's a theory that their brain hemispheres function differently, which may explain the prevalence of creative and unconventional personalities among them. Imagine living in a world where everything is slightly inconvenient. Yet this inconvenience can sometimes spark ingenuity. Left-handed individuals seem to see the world from a different perspective. Glass seems like something familiar to us: windows, bottles, phone screens. But if you think about it, it's a true marvel of nature and human ingenuity. It all starts with ordinary sand, which is heated to temperatures over 1,400 degrees. It melts and transforms into a transparent material. This process has been known since the time of ancient Egypt, and since then it has hardly changed, only become more precise. Consider how amazing it is. What crunches under our feet on the beach can, after being subjected to fire, become a transparent window through which we view the world. Ordinary sand has the power to reshape civilization. The sunset on Mars is a true wonder. Unlike Earth, where the sky is painted in shades of red and orange, on Mars the sun sets in a blue glow. This is due to the planet's thin atmosphere, which scatters light differently than ours. As a result, the daytime sky appears pale yellow, and at sunset, the horizon ignites with a stunning blue light. Astronauts who find themselves there will witness a truly alien landscape. Imagine standing on the cold Martian plains, gazing up at a foreign yet mesmerizing sky. It's like a painting by an artist who decided to swap the usual colors. Penguins are masters of swimming and diving, but they have another trick up their sleeves. They intentionally swallow small stones. Why? First, these pebbles help grind food in their stomachs, acting like a kind of grinding system. Second, the extra weight helps the birds dive deeper and stay underwater longer. This way, penguins become true underwater hunters. Imagine what seems like a silly act, grabbing a stone and swallowing it, turns out to be a clever adaptation for survival. It's another example of how nature equips animals with unexpected tools that help them excel in their environment. Some monkeys, like macaques, cannot stick out their tongues. Their muscle structure limits this movement. For us, sticking out our tongues is a childish prank or a way to tease a friend, but for them, it's impossible. Interestingly, macaques manage their food perfectly well. They crack hard fruits, process bark, and use their hands with remarkable precision. So the absence of a flexible tongue is compensated by their dexterous fingers. It's as if nature said, "All right, the tongue will be immobile, but I'll give you hands like a jeweler's." This makes their lives no less rich. They simply express themselves through actions rather than words. Imagine Venice at night, when tourists disperse to their hotels and the city falls silent. You walk across an ancient stone bridge, and suddenly it emits astonishing sounds, like a soft melody. This is due to its unique design. In certain spots, plates are installed that begin to vibrate with each step. The effect of resonance transforms an ordinary bridge into a musical instrument. Tourists unwittingly become musicians themselves. These sounds seem to transport you to the past, to an era when Venice was a hub of trade and art. The city still knows how to amaze. Here, even the stones converse and sing if you listen closely enough. Sharks are eternal swimmers. They lack a swim bladder, which keeps most fish at the right depth. To avoid sinking and suffocating, they must keep moving all the time. Water flows through their gills, and that's the only way they get oxygen. Imagine having to walk your entire life, with no right to sit down or lie down to sleep. For a shark, this is normal. Even in sleep, it continues to swim, moving slowly and calmly. So the ocean is for it both a bed and a road, a home all at once. A true marathon that lasts a lifetime. When the Apollo astronauts landed on the moon, they left not only footprints, but also special markings. These were lines and arrows that helped them navigate in the unfamiliar environment. There are no familiar horizons or road signs on the moon, making it easy to get lost. Therefore, scientists devised lunar markings in advance so that the astronauts would know where to go and how to return to the module. These simple lines became an important part of mission safety. It's amusing to think that on the moon, where there are no cars or traffic jams, there is still its own road system. The human tendency to impose order even worked on another celestial body. In Germany, in the town of Oberstdorf, a unique lift has been built that moves diagonally rather than vertically. It takes tourists up the mountainside at a 45-degree angle, combining features of both a funicular and a lift. Imagine stepping into the cabin, the doors closing, and instead of the usual vertical movement, you start gliding as if on a slope. For those who love unusual experiences, it's a true adventure. Moreover, the view from the cabin is breathtaking. Mountains, forests, and sky seem to unfold before your eyes. This mode of transport demonstrates that engineering can be both practical and fun. Even great doctors can find themselves at the center of family accusations and scandals. Henry Heimlich became famous as the physician who invented the life-saving maneuver for choking, known as the Heimlich maneuver. However, his son Peter claimed that his father merely appropriated others' ideas, and that the Red Cross helped promote the method. Moreover, Peter called him a fraud and a vain man craving fame. The family conflict turned into a public scandal, and the image of the heroic doctor became less clear-cut. This story serves as a reminder that even the most noble discoveries can be surrounded by controversy, and behind a prominent name can sometimes lie a complicated individual. Tokyo Tower is very similar to the Eiffel Tower, but it's painted in orange and white. The most interesting part is that it weighs almost half as much. This is due to the new generation steel used in its construction in the 1950s. The lightweight yet strong metal allowed for the creation of a massive structure without unnecessary heaviness. It turned out to be an acrobatic building, tall, stable, and yet slim. The tower became a symbol of Japan's recovery after the war, and its silhouette still adorns Tokyo. It serves as a reminder that technology can be both powerful and elegant. Today, the Earth's population has surpassed 8 billion people. Imagine, that's 8 billion stories, voices, smiles, and destinies. For comparison, in just the last 100 years, we've quadrupled in number. Once, only a few million people lived on the planet, and now that many can reside in a single large city. This figure prompts us to think about the future. Will resources be sufficient? Will we learn to care for the planet? Yet at the same time, 8 billion represents 8 billion opportunities, ideas, and discoveries that could change the world. In Bhutan, almost half of the residents walk to work every day. The roads there don't always accommodate cars, and the mountainous terrain makes walking a natural part of life. Imagine, in the morning people ascend trails with views of the Himalayas, and in the evening they return the same way. For them, it's not about sports or fitness. It's just a regular means of getting around. Perhaps that's why Bhutanese are considered some of the happiest people. They connect work with nature every day, breathe fresh air, and enjoy stunning landscapes. Today, humanity has explored only 1 to 5% of the ocean. Everything else remains in the dark depths, where humans have rarely ventured. Unknown species, entire ecosystems, and even new sources of energy may be hidden there. Imagine, we know more about the moon than about the ocean floor. This paradox astonishes scientists and fuels the imagination. What lies beneath? Giant creatures, underwater cities, or just darkness? Each new descent of exploration devices reveals a piece of this mystery. It turns out that the ocean is the last great enigma on Earth. Sharks have a secret that dentists can only dream of. Their teeth are coated with natural fluoride. Imagine a smile that never knows cavities. These predators replace their teeth hundreds of times throughout their lives, and each new one grows in perfectly healthy and strong. Sharks don't use toothbrushes or toothpaste, yet their jaws always look like a Hollywood star on the red carpet. That's why sharks can hunt for decades without worrying about pain or treatment. If humans had the same advantage, dentists could be turned into museums. This is where people worked when teeth still broke. It turns out that the rubber snake is not just a toy, but a real animal. In Canada, there is a harmless snake with the surprising name of rubber snake. It is completely safe for humans and is even used in therapy for people with phobias. Due to its calm demeanor and soft body, it is used for gradual acclimatization to snakes. There have been no recorded cases of attacks on humans. Interestingly, the rubber snake, that we usually think of as a prank toy, actually exists in nature and helps people overcome their fears. Sometimes even the names of animals sound like a joke from nature. It may seem that sports should unite people, but one day a football field became the spark for war. It sounds absurd, but in 1969, football matches were the last straw in the conflict between Honduras and El Salvador. The teams faced off on the field, but underlying their game were much sharper issues: overpopulation, land disputes, and social tension. The matches added fuel to the fire, leading to a war that would later be called the Football War. It lasted only a few days, but claimed thousands of lives. The irony is that a sport meant for unity and joy unexpectedly became the trigger for a real tragedy. It turns out that we perceive smells not only with our noses. Our skin has receptors that respond to aromatic substances. Scientists conducted experiments by applying certain scents to the skin and observed that the cells reacted. Moreover, some aromas accelerated wound healing. It seems that our skin acts like an additional sense organ that quietly works in the background. Imagine if we could smell the aroma of coffee, not just with our noses, but also with our palms. While this sounds fantastic, research shows that the skin does indeed pick up chemical signals. The paradox is that the first multicellular organisms went extinct almost immediately. 2 billion years ago, the Earth's atmosphere temporarily had more oxygen. This is when the first multicellular beings appeared. It seemed like life had taken a huge step forward. However, after a while, the oxygen levels dropped again, and these pioneers disappeared without leaving any descendants. Scientists refer to them as the Franzvillian biota because their remains were found in Africa. It turns out that nature's first trial run failed. Yet without it, we might not exist. Every failure in evolution paved the way for new attempts. In the old houses of Venice and Florence, secret staircases hidden within the walls are still being discovered. Aristocrats built them as a backup escape route in case of danger or attack. These concealed passages led to secret rooms or allowed for a discreet exit from the house. Today, such discoveries captivate tourists. You enter an old mansion and suddenly find a small door behind which lies a narrow spiral staircase leading who knows where. It feels as if the house itself is guarding its secrets. These architectural tricks serve as a reminder that life in past centuries was not only luxurious, but also dangerous, requiring caution and clever solutions. In the late 90s, Furby toys appeared in the U.S., furry, chatty creatures with electronic eyes. Rumors circulated that they could record conversations and send them somewhere. It got to the point where they were officially banned from government facilities, including the National Security Agency. Of course, it turned out that Furbies were not spies at all, just a myth and panic surrounding a new toy. But history shows how people sometimes fear technology. A toy designed for children's play briefly became a dangerous agent. Funny, isn't it? Egypt can confidently be called the oldest state in the world. Its history spans over 5,000 years, beginning with the unification of Upper and Lower Kingdoms. The pyramids, temples, and the mysterious Nile are not just beautiful images, but symbols of a civilization that laid the foundation for many cultures. Imagine, while Europe was still unaware of writing, the Egyptians were already constructing majestic tombs and writing in hieroglyphs. And even though thousands of years have passed, Egypt still holds secrets that scholars are unraveling, like the pages of the oldest book in the world. There's a myth that a duck's quack doesn't echo. In reality, that's not true. Physics works the same for all sounds. It's just that a duck's quack has a frequency and duration that make the echoes seem quiet and unnoticeable. In a quiet place, you can catch it, but under normal conditions, it fades away. So the myth arises from the peculiarities of our hearing, not from nature itself. It's amusing how often we create legends to explain ordinary things. A duck quacks with an echo. It's just hard to hear. So next time by the pond, try to listen closely. You might catch that hidden stereo. Unexpectedly, the word sect originally had an honorable connotation rather than a frightening one. Today, sect refers to suspicious religious groups associated with deception or fanaticism. However, in ancient Rome, the term secta had a neutral meaning, school or teaching. It was used to describe philosophical movements and groups of students and followers. For example, the Stoics or Epicureans were considered sects. Only over time, as many religious communities with questionable reputations emerged, did the word take on a negative connotation. Ironically, a term that once meant school of knowledge has transformed into a frightening label. The history of language can be just as surprising as the history of humanity. Regular sand can be transformed into transparent glass when heated to around 1,700 degrees. At such high temperatures, it melts and becomes a liquid mass, which solidifies into a strong and clear material upon cooling. Imagine how ordinary beach sand gives rise to windows, glasses, or stained glass in cathedrals. This was known to the ancient Egyptians, who were the first to create glass ornaments. It's remarkable that from the simplest grains we walk on barefoot, fragile beauty can be crafted that adorns homes and cities for centuries. In English, a group of ladybugs is called loveliness, which can be translated as grace or charm. This is perhaps one of the most fitting names for these creatures. Imagine a meadow where dozens of bright red bugs are crawling through the grass. The word herd would sound harsh, while loveliness perfectly captures the mood. Language often reflects people's attitudes toward nature, and in this case, it is incredibly warm. It feels as though the ladybugs themselves have earned the title of the cutest beings in the insect world. In Australia, there is Lake Hillier, which changes color from soft pink to deep purple. This effect is created by special algae and minerals. Imagine flying in a plane and seeing a bright pink spot among the greenery of the island, as if a giant spilled strawberry yogurt. Scientists are still debating why the shade is so stable, as even in a bottle, the water from the lake retains its color. For tourists, it is one of the most unusual sights, a natural palette that looks like a scene from a sci-fi movie. A story that sounds like a spy novel. Scientologists infiltrated U.S. government agencies. In the 1970s, followers of this religion conducted Operation Snow White. Their goal was to destroy documents that could harm the church. Scientologists secretly entered buildings, stole materials, and attempted to sabotage investigations. Ultimately, The FBI uncovered the conspiracy, making it one of the largest cases of illegal infiltration into government structures. For many, this event was shocking. A religious organization operated using intelligence agency tactics. It turns out that real life can sometimes be far more dramatic than fiction in movies. Today, we pop bubble wrap for fun or use it to wrap packages. However, it was originally designed as decorative wallpaper. In the 1950s, two engineers set out to create an unusual wall covering, light, soft, and textured. The idea didn't catch on in interiors, but it accidentally became a packaging sensation. Now, it's hard to imagine moving or shipping without this wrap. It's amusing that something that failed as home decor turned into an international symbol of protection and stress relief. Sometimes the best inventions emerge from places completely different from where they were intended. When you hear the word bison, it sounds like a joke. But no, bison are a real hybrid of cattle and buffalo. These animals combine the strength and endurance of wild bison with the hardiness of domestic cows. They were specifically bred in the U.S. to create a robust and resilient livestock capable of thriving in harsh conditions. As a result, bison have become true stars of agriculture. They adapt well and produce delicious meat. Imagine encountering a creature in the field that looks both familiar and exotic, as if two worlds have merged into one body. Nature and humans sometimes create unusual alliances, and bison are a striking example of how an experiment can lead to an extraordinary animal. In the town of Talkeetna, Alaska, they've come up with a tourist attraction. A trained bear delivers the mail. Of course, he doesn't go door to door but participates in a show, carrying baskets filled with letters inside the post office. Tourists love the idea of sending a postcard with a bear stamp. It's a unique keepsake. The locals have turned this into an attraction, and now the bear postman has become a true symbol of the town. It sounds almost like a fairy tale, but it's actually a real way to attract visitors and make ordinary mail a local landmark. When a group of ferrets gathers, it's called a business. This is quite fitting. They are constantly bustling about, exploring everything around them, stealing shiny objects, and darting around as if discussing important deals. Imagine a small office where the employees wear fluffy tails instead of suits. They jump, play, and look so busy that you can't help but think, yes, they really are hard at work. This amusing name highlights the nature of these animals: active, curious, and a bit chaotic. It's a business you could watch forever. On Venus, there is an optical phenomenon similar to a rainbow, but it's called a glory. Instead of raindrops, tiny particles of sulfuric acid in the planet's dense atmosphere create it. As a result, bright-colored circles appear in the sky, resembling a glowing halo. Imagine not the familiar arc above the rain, but a true cosmic aura. This shows that even on other planets, nature puts on its own light, and color shows, albeit with different ingredients. And even though Venus is distant and harsh, it can also be beautiful. In the 19th century, watermelon became not only a delicacy, but also a secret ingredient for juices. Watermelons were used not just as a standalone fruit, but also as a base for vitamin blends. They were added to juices to balance the flavor. Watermelon made the drink smoother and more pleasant, reducing the excess acidity and bitterness of other fruits. Imagine a glass of orange juice that's too sour to drink without grimacing. Add a bit of watermelon, and the taste becomes refreshing and harmonious. This technique is still used in cooking today, and it was once a true discovery. Robert Howard, the author of Conan the Barbarian, was a friend and ally of H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft, the creator of the Cthulhu mythos, was a close friend of Robert Howard, the legendary creator of Conan. They corresponded, discussed their works, and inspired each other. When Howard took his own life at the age of 30, Lovecraft was deeply shaken and soon succumbed to illness and depression. Their friendship became a link between Lovecraft's dark cosmic horror and Howard's heroic fantasy. Thus, two completely different genres, horror and epic adventure, somehow emerged from a single creative friendship. Did you know that the Pentagon cannot account for half of its budget? The U.S. Department of Defense is regularly audited, and each time it turns out that a huge portion of its expenses remains unverified. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. The reasons include the complexity of the system, bureaucracy, and sometimes plain negligence. But for taxpayers, it sounds absurd. The world's largest military spends money but can't accurately explain where it goes. This fact has become a source of numerous conspiracy theories and distrust in the government. In any case, it's a striking example of how even a massive organization can get lost in its own accounts. The myxomatosis virus nearly wiped out rabbits in Europe within a few years. French microbiologist Armand Delille tried to control the rabbit population on his estate by infecting them with the myxomatosis virus. However, the disease spiraled out of control. In just a few years, the virus spread across Europe and killed 98% of the rabbits. The culprit was fined, but the damage was done. An entire species was on the brink of extinction. Fortunately, rabbits proved to be resilient and gradually recovered their numbers. This case became one of the most striking examples of how human intervention can lead to ecological disaster. In the tropical forests of Papua New Guinea lives a creature that is easily overlooked, the smallest frog in the world. It measures just 7.7 millimeters, less than a centimeter. Weighing about 1/100th of a gram, it hides among the leaves, appearing as a tiny dot. But don't be fooled into thinking it's quiet. Its voice resembles the buzz of an insect and can be heard from a considerable distance. This little one demonstrates that nature can create not only giants like whales and elephants, but also incredible miniature champions. It's astonishing how life and energy can fit into such a microscopic body. In Venice, there is an unusual museum that showcases items recovered from the bottom of the canals. You can see coins, ancient tools, jewelry, and even musical instruments that have been submerged for centuries. Each exhibit is a piece of history, accidentally lost and later found. Imagine walking through the city, and somewhere beneath your feet in the mud lies a lost ring or a merchant's wallet, only to be unearthed by archaeologists centuries later. This museum brings the past to life, revealing not the grand Venice, but its everyday life. It serves as a reminder that every forgotten object could one day become part of a larger story. Did you know that the largest island nation is Indonesia? This country consists of more than 17,000 islands, but the exact number is still unknown even to the government. Some islands disappear underwater, while others emerge from volcanoes. Indonesia is like a living puzzle that is constantly changing. It is the largest archipelago on the planet, and its geography contributes to its diversity, from tropical beaches to dense jungles and sprawling megacities. Here, literally every area is a separate world with its own culture, language, and traditions. The Amazon is a river so powerful that its fresh water flows into the Atlantic for hundreds of kilometers. Imagine sailing on a ship in the open ocean, and the water around you is still not salty. Scientists call this phenomenon one of the greatest wonders of hydrology. The Amazon acts like a giant faucet, diluting the ocean's salinity so abundantly that fish and plants feel its effects far beyond the mouth of the river. No other river in the world can transform the sea in such a way. The Amazon is not just a river, it is a living artery of the planet, demonstrating how water can be stronger than even the greatest ocean. Many people consider donkeys to be stubborn and dull animals, but in reality, they are much smarter and more emotional than they seem. Donkeys have excellent memories for friends, both humans and other animals, and can hold on to such memories for up to 20 years. They can sense their owner's mood, enjoy attention, feel jealous, and even become sad if ignored. In fact, donkeys have a rich inner world and value friendship just as much as dogs do. Therefore, it's not surprising that in countries where donkeys live alongside people, they are regarded not just as helpers, but almost as full-fledged family members. Those ears and gentle eyes hide much more than we tend to think. Even wild wolves know how to wag their tails, and they do it with a specific meaning. We are used to dogs expressing joy and friendliness this way, but their wild ancestors, the wolves, do the same thing, albeit with a different significance. Young wolves wag their tails in front of older ones, showing respect and submission. Sometimes the tail helps to ease a tense situation. It's a way of saying, "I'm not a threat. I acknowledge your authority." Thus, this gesture in dogs is not a coincidence, but an ancient legacy. It's amusing to think that when you play with your dog's tail, you are witnessing an echo of the behavior of its distant ancestors who lived in forests and packs. A story that sounds like fiction. A caterpillar turns into soup. When the time for transformation comes, the caterpillar crawls into a cocoon and literally dissolves its body using enzymes. This creates a viscous mass from which the eyes, wings, antennae, and all other organs are reformed. Essentially, it's a complete reset of the organism. Scientists are still amazed by this process. The insect destroys itself to build a new body from building blocks. The result is a butterfly, light and vibrant, completely different from the former caterpillar. Nature seems to show that sometimes, to change, one must completely break down into parts. Vladimir Lenin was not only a revolutionary, but also an avid chess player. During his exile in Siberia, he played correspondence games, solved chess problems and studies, and later often used chess metaphors in his writings. For him, chess was not just a game, but a training ground for strategic thinking. Imagine, he could manage several games at once while in exile and simultaneously work on political texts. Chess helped him hone his patience and ability to calculate moves. Thus, the revolutionary known for decisive actions was a cool-headed strategist on the board, capable of waiting for the right moment to make a winning move. Galapagos marine iguanas can hold their breath for up to an hour. These unusual lizards live on the Galapagos Islands and feed on seaweed. To find food, they dive into the ocean and can stay underwater for up to 60 minutes. Their bodies are adapted so that blood is directed only to vital organs during this time, conserving oxygen. They expel excess salt through special glands in their noses, sneezing out salty droplets. On land, they bask in the sun, while in the sea, they become true underwater divers. This is a unique example of reptiles adapting to oceanic life. Strangely enough, the word robot was not coined by a scientist, but by a writer. Czech playwright Karel Čapek introduced the term in his play RUR. Initially, he wanted to call artificial beings laborus, derived from the Latin word for work, but his artist brother suggested the shorter and catchier robot, from the Czech word for work. Thus, literature gifted science a term that has now become part of everyday life. It's amusing that the technology changing the world began with a fantastical play and a chance word choice in a conversation between two brothers. Chicago is known as the Windy City, and many believe it's all about the weather. In reality, the nickname originated in the 19th century and referred to the city's politicians, who were famous for their long and pompous speeches. Journalists sarcastically remarked that Chicago was blown by the wind, not due to the climate, but because of empty words. Of course, the city does experience winds from Lake Michigan, but historically, it's more of a jab at talkative politicians than a meteorological fact. Interestingly, over time, the original meaning was forgotten, and the nickname remained, becoming the city's official calling card. In Texas, there's a place that tourists call the Doll Graveyard Town. Once a mining settlement, it is now filled with hundreds of old dolls. They stand on fences, sit in houses, and hang from trees, creating an atmosphere straight out of a mystical film. The locals have turned this into a quirky attraction, offering tours and joking that the dolls rule the town. Of course, it's all in good fun, but it truly looks eerie. Strolling through the streets among the doll residents is not for the faint of heart. There is a specific disorder called dyscalculia, a kind of dyslexia for numbers. People with this condition struggle even with the simplest tasks. They find it hard to understand which number is larger, 6 or 7, or to count change in a store. Their ability to perceive time, navigate calculations, and remember numbers is often affected. Approximately 7.5% of people worldwide live with this condition. For them, math is not just a difficult subject, but an almost incomprehensible language. Interestingly, a person may be talented in music or art, yet numbers will remain a mystery to them. Even serious scientific satellites can have cartoon nicknames. In 2002, the Grace mission was launched. 2 satellites that flew one behind the other in the same orbit. Their task was to measure gravitational changes on Earth. One satellite would speed up as it passed over mountain ranges, drifting away from the other, and then they would come back together. Scientists joked that they were playing tag and nicknamed them Tom and Jerry. It's amusing that a serious scientific project of global significance ended up with a name from a children's cartoon. So much so that it became the mission's official informal name. Interestingly, even the mightiest trees have a limit to their growth. It turns out that no tree on the planet can exceed a height of about 130 meters. The reason lies in physics. Water cannot rise up the trunk beyond a certain level. It's like trying to drink through a straw the length of a skyscraper. At some point, the liquid simply stops. This is why even the majestic sequoias, the tallest trees in the world, reach this invisible threshold. We look up at them in awe of their grandeur, but they too are subject to the strict laws of nature that impose a limit where it seems there could be infinity. Imagine this. What we call a banana tree is actually not a tree at all. It doesn't have a real wooden trunk. It's just tightly rolled leaves. Essentially, the banana is the tallest grass on the planet. So you walk through a garden, see this massive plant and think, definitely a tree, while botanists smile slyly. It's amusing that the fruits we eat in the morning actually grow on a giant blade of grass. Picture a lawn in front of your house, but the size of a 3-story building. That's the green paradox of nature. Sometimes a word that sounds like a joke hides a very real pain in the muscles. Caripatura is a term sometimes used to refer to muscle soreness, that familiar feeling when your muscles start to ache after a workout. Scientifically, it's called delayed onset muscle soreness and occurs due to microtears in the fibers. The body responds to the strain with inflammation to repair the tissues, which is why the muscles hurt more the next day. In everyday life, this is perceived as a punishment for exercising, but in reality, it's a sign that the body is adapting and becoming stronger. One could say that caripatura is a receipt that the body gives you for the work done. Scientists have noticed an intriguing habit. When leaving a cave, bats almost always turn left. Why? One theory suggests that this helps them avoid collisions in their large colony. Imagine an intersection without traffic lights, where thousands of cars decide to go only in one direction. It's the same for bats. This common rule of movement makes flying safer. What seems trivial to us is a matter of survival for them. In the dark, order is especially important, and nature has elegantly solved this issue. Left it is. Camels are the champions of the desert. They can drink up to 130 liters of water in just 13 minutes. It's like a person draining an entire bathtub in one go. Their bodies are designed to retain moisture. Their blood and tissues are adapted to withstand dehydration, and they hardly sweat at all. Because of this, camels survive where other animals wouldn't last a day. It's no wonder they are called ships of the desert. They carry loads and people across the scorching sands like enormous living water tanks. There is a strange yet very real phobia called majoraphobia, or the fear of cooking. For those who suffer from it, the kitchen becomes a room of horrors. Pots and pans seem dangerous, and the very act of cooking triggers panic. It's not just a reluctance to stand by the stove. It's a deep-seated fear that can literally paralyze a person. Someone may thrive on ready-made meals, but the thought of preparing something themselves brings on anxiety. This phobia is rare, but it vividly illustrates the diversity of fears. Some people are afraid of spiders, others of heights, while some fear an ordinary pot. Ultimately, it serves as a reminder that everyone has their own vulnerabilities. Once in the Chesapeake Bay, oysters created real living islands. In the 19th century, there were so many oysters in the Chesapeake Bay that they literally covered the surface of the water. Huge clusters of mollusks even obstructed ships from passing. But as usual, humans intervened. In just 100 years, they nearly wiped out these colossal stocks. By 2011, the oyster population had declined by 99.7%. From a rich natural carpet, only tiny fragments remained. A stark reminder that nature is not infinite. We tend to think of the world as having three kingdoms: animals, plants, and fungi. Most often we classify fungi as plants, but the truth is they are much closer to animals. They share a common ancestor with us that dates back over 1 billion years. Unlike plants, fungi cannot photosynthesize. They obtain nutrients by decomposing organic matter. Essentially, they eat like animals. So a champignon or a honey mushroom is not just a little plant with a cap, but a distant relative of ours. Fungi are true recyclers of nature. They return nutrients to the soil, give life to new plants, and without them, ecosystems would simply collapse. We all dream of hitting the big jackpot, but the odds are so slim that even the trip to buy a ticket is more dangerous. Statistics show that the likelihood of dying on the way to the kiosk is higher than winning the grand prize. It's funny, but it's true. This doesn't mean buying a ticket is pointless. After all, excitement and hope are part of the game. But it's important to remember, true luck isn't about winning millions. It's about getting home safe. So when someone says, "I'm pretty sure I'm going to win," you can reply, "The main thing is not to get into an accident on the way." Sometimes, just living life is the biggest win. Who would have thought that an albatross can fly for hours without flapping its wings? These seabirds are true masters of gliding. They skillfully utilize the air currents above the ocean, allowing them to soar for hours with minimal energy expenditure. Some albatrosses spend years at sea, rarely landing on land. They sleep on the water, feed on fish, and feel at home in the ocean. Imagine a whole life in the sky above the sea, where wings become sails. Albatrosses are a symbol of freedom, and their ability to fly almost effortlessly amazes even scientists. The starfish eats in a rather unusual way. It turns its stomach inside out and wraps it around its prey, such as a shell. The food is digested externally, and then the stomach is pulled back in. It's like a portable container. Take it out. eat, and put it away. This method allows the starfish to handle prey that is difficult to swallow whole. It's amusing that behind the calm appearance of these sea creatures lies such a trick with their stomachs. They seem to know the secret to an unconventional approach to eating. Sometimes pirates went to sea not for gold, but for hats. In the 17th century, English pirate Benjamin Hornigold once stopped a merchant ship, but he wasn't interested in gold or spices. He and his crew had overindulged the night before and thrown their hats overboard. So Hornigold demanded only new headgear from the crew. It's a funny situation. Imagine how terrified the merchants were, expecting a raid, only to be told, "We just need hats." Even fearsome pirates found themselves in silly everyday stories. Leonardo da Vinci observed a mathematical law in the most ordinary trees. In his notes, he remarked that if you sum the thickness of all the branches of a tree at a certain height, it equals the thickness of the trunk. This remarkable observation has been confirmed by modern research. Trees that follow this rule withstand strong winds and storms better. Leonardo made a discovery that ecologists and biologists still use today. It turns out that the artist and inventor recognized patterns in nature that science was only able to prove centuries later. A true example of how a genius was ahead of his time. A story that challenges conventional understanding. Lomonosov discovered the atmosphere of Venus. In the 18th century, while observing Venus transit across the sun's disk, Mikhail Lomonosov noticed a glowing halo around the planet. He deduced that this was not an optical illusion, but evidence of an atmosphere. This discovery made him the first person to prove that another planet has its own envelope. For modern astronomers, this seems obvious, but at the time, it was revolutionary. Lomonosov demonstrated that scientific intuition and careful observation can reveal what is invisible to others. Trends in animal fashion often lead to illness and suffering for them. So-called designer dog and cat breeds look unusual and cute. Short legs, flat faces, and huge eyes. However, behind this cuteness lie serious problems. Due to artificial selection, these animals frequently suffer from congenital diseases, ranging from breathing issues to joint deformities. In Scotland, a law has even been passed to prohibit the breeding of such breeds to prevent further suffering. People aimed to make animals more beautiful, but instead, they have bestowed upon them constant torment. This is a striking example of how the desire for fashion can turn against nature itself. Sometimes science plays with coincidences. The same equation is discovered by two different scientists. The Lorentz-Lorentz equation got its name for a reason. It was derived independently by two researchers, the Danish scientist Ludwig Lorentz and the Dutch scientist Hendrik Lorentz. The difference was nearly 10 years, and they were unaware of each other's work. In the end, both published almost the same discovery. Science sometimes has such quirks. People in different countries, working on similar problems, arrive at the same results. This shows that discoveries are not random. They hang in the air, waiting to be noticed. Do you remember those annoying pop-up windows on the internet? The ones that took up half the screen and drove you crazy? It turns out their inventor publicly apologized for them later. In the 1990s, programmer Ethan Zuckerman came up with this method to separate ads from main content. At the time, it seemed like a good idea, but soon ads flooded the web, turning surfing into a nightmare. Years later, Zuckerman admitted that his invention caused more harm than good. This is a great example of how even good intentions can lead to unpleasant outcomes. And now, when we close yet another pop-up window, we can remember that its creator regrets it. Turtles are true long livers of the planet. They appeared over 200 million years ago, surviving dinosaurs, ice ages, and numerous catastrophes. Their shell is not just armor, but a part of their skeleton that protects them from enemies and aids in survival. Some species can live up to 150 years, and sea turtles are capable of crossing oceans, traveling thousands of kilometers in search of food. Think about it. Long before the first humans appeared, these slow creatures were already calmly walking the earth. Today, when we encounter a turtle, we are looking at a living relic, a piece of the ancient world that has managed to reach us almost in its original form. Excessively bright light can harm the psyche just as much as noise. We tend to think of light as a sign of comfort and safety, but too much of it can lead to stress, anxiety, and even headaches. Overly lit offices or shopping centers can be just as draining as loud sounds. Scientists refer to this phenomenon as light pollution for the mind. Just as laundry can't dry in fog, the brain can't rest in a constant stream of bright light. Therefore, it's important to regulate lighting. Sometimes soft, dim light is more beneficial than glaring lamps that turn a room into a sterile laboratory. In the Middle Ages, there was an unusual unit of volume, the ton, but it wasn't the familiar weight measurement. It referred to the amount of wine that could fit in a huge barrel. Merchants and winemakers used this method of measurement for trade. Imagine, at a fair, deals were made not in liters or even barrels, but in whole tons of wine. Today, this word is associated with heaviness and mass, but once it was linked to joy and feasting. This detail of history serves as a reminder that many modern terms originated from very practical needs of the past, when wine was almost a currency. One of the most popular traditions in the world, tea drinking, was born out of chance. Legend has it that 5,000 years ago, the Chinese Emperor Shen Nong was drinking hot water under a tree when leaves fell into his cup. The water's flavor changed, and he enjoyed the drink. Thus, tea was born. Since then, it has become a part of the culture in dozens of countries. Interestingly, billions of people start their day with this drink that was discovered by accident. It turns out that a habit we can't imagine our mornings without once originated from a simple gust of wind. In India, a farmer spent 19 years trying to prove that he was a living person and not a dead man on paper. Indian farmer Lal Bihari was declared dead in 1975 according to official documents. Fraudsters had registered him in the death registry to seize his land. Since then, Lal Bihari fought against bureaucracy for nearly 2 decades to prove he was alive. During this time, he even founded the Association of Dead People to help other victims of similar schemes. It took him 19 years to restore his rights. This story sounds like a dark comedy, but it highlights the absurdity of the bureaucratic system. The International Space Station is not just a laboratory in orbit. It is the most expensive man-made object ever created. Its construction and operation have cost around $150 billion. For comparison, that's nearly 50 times the cost of the Eiffel Tower. The station has become a symbol of cooperation among different countries, with Americans, Russians, Japanese, and Europeans working together on board. Experiments are conducted there that cannot be performed on Earth. And while the amount may seem astronomical, the results are worth it. The ISS has opened the doors to life beyond our planet and represents a step toward future flights to other worlds. Dubai loves to impress with architectural wonders, and one of the ideas is skyscrapers that rotate around their axis. Imagine a building where each floor can slowly turn, offering residents a new view: the sea in the morning, the desert in the evening, and the city lights at night. This technology requires complex solutions, but it transforms the building into a living mechanism. Additionally, the rotation helps evenly distribute sunlight throughout the building and saves energy. This is not just a striking concept, but a step towards smart architecture, where comfort and beauty go hand in hand. Dubai once again proves that the future is already here. It may seem surprising, but trousers, once considered a symbol of savagery, were ridiculed by the ancient Greeks, who mocked the Persians for wearing them, calling them bags. For the Greeks and Romans, the tunic was the attire of a civilized person. Trousers were seen as coarse and barbaric clothing until the Romans, expanding northward, encountered the Celts and adopted this practical wardrobe item. It's amusing to think that today, it's hard to imagine our world without trousers, while they were once a sign of barbarism. The history of fashion knows how to take incredible turns. Chinese woman Xi Jinping became famous for not cutting her hair for over 40 years. She started growing it at the age of 13 and reached a length of 5.62 meters. That's almost 18 feet. Just imagine how much time it takes to care for such a braid. Brushing alone takes a couple of hours, and washing is a whole ritual. Sometimes she braids her hair or wraps it around herself to make it easier to move. Her record is listed in the Guinness Book of Records, and so far, no one has broken it. It's reminiscent of the tale of Rapunzel, but in real life, where determination and patience become a true legend. The oldest university in the world was established in the 9th century in Morocco. It was founded by a woman, Fatima al-Fihri. She invested her inheritance in the construction of a mosque and an educational center, which became a place of knowledge for thousands of students. It's remarkable that at a time when women had very few rights, one of them created an institution that has survived for centuries. Today, Al-Qarawiyyin University is still operational and is considered the oldest in the world. Fatima's story reminds us that great changes often come from those we least expect. It seems obvious that matches came first and then lighters, but it's the other way around. The first lighter was invented in 1823, while matches appeared 3 years later. It was created by the German chemist Johann Wolfgang Dobereiner and operated on hydrogen. The device looked bulky and dangerous, but the principle was the same: a spark and a flame. So the familiar pocket item once resembled a laboratory instrument. It's ironic that lighters are older than matches, even though matches are now seen as the more ancient way to make fire. In 2001, the residents of the Indian state of Kerala were stunned. Red rain was falling from the sky. The droplets left crimson puddles, as if after a mystical sign. People thought of the apocalypse or the blood of gods. Scientists, however, discovered that particles of sand and spores from microscopic algae had entered the atmosphere, coloring the rain. This phenomenon lasted for several weeks, and each day felt like a scene from a science fiction movie. For the locals, this event remains one of the most mysterious memories, told to children as a miracle that happened in their land. Today, OK is heard everywhere, from chats to serious negotiations. But few know that this word originated from a joke in a Boston newspaper in 1839. In an article, they intentionally wrote, "all correct" incorrectly, resulting in "all correct." People liked the abbreviation, and soon OK became widely used. First in America, then around the world. Now it's a universal sign of agreement, understood in almost every country. It's amusing that a newspaper pun turned into the most recognizable word on the planet. The next time you write OK to a friend, remember, it's not just a response, but a little historical joke. It may seem like ordinary things, but if you take a closer look, they hold the most unexpected stories. If you enjoyed this journey through the world of curiosities, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There's even more to come that textbooks have kept silent about.